Governor Christi delivered his assessment outlining programs he'd expand and problems he'd contract against a backdrop of national presidential politics. Chief political correspondent Michael Aaron reports.
It's good to be home.
The homecoming didn't last long. Christi was in New Hampshire this morning on 3 different cable news shows, blasting President Obama for not even mentioning in his State of the Union address the captured American sailors.
At least acknowledge that these men and women have been taken, and for the American people to pray for their safe return to their families and to our country. But the president doesn't want to do that because that would interrupt story time with Barack Obama, which is what that speech was last night.
Asked about his own speech yesterday, Christi said the main messages were on addiction and pensions. On addiction, he wants a $100 million increase for mental health and substance abuse. At Integrity House in Newark, which has 440 residential treatment beds, it means a substantial increase in the $68 per day reimbursement rate, which the agencies have said is too low.
I think that Governor Christi is facing a lot of criticism, and it may not be fashionable to say, he's getting it right, but Governor Christi is absolutely getting it right when it comes to addiction treatment.
Christi also announced the closing of Mid-State State Prison at Fort Dix and his desire to turn it into a drug treatment center for inmates. On pensions, Christi attacked the Democratic plan to bolster the pension system by constitutional amendment. He called it payback for campaign contributions from the unions and said it will make 90% of the public second-class citizens to benefit just 10%.
Let them see now, well in advance, how you're going to take their money from them to repay your union bosses. See, because this is the truth of your choice, and you know it. To pay for gold-plated pensions and platinum health benefits for a chosen, constitutionally protected few.
Democratic legislative leaders say their plan simply mirrors what the governor has already committed to.
So we adopted his numbers that he said he's going to fund. So where's he coming up with the money?
The document talks about spreading it out over 5 years. The first payment is equal to what is in this year's budget. So it actually spreads it out to give some time to be able to, the economy to catch up.
The unions are firing back. Police Benevolent Association President Pat Colligan sent a letter this week to police leaders in New Hampshire warning them that Christi breaks promises on pensions. And CWA State Director Hetty Rosenstein chimed in today.
Everything he does and everything he says has to do with what he wants to be seen in New Hampshire or in Iowa and doesn't really have anything to do with New Jersey.
Echoing Sweeney and Prieto, she says the constitutional amendment follows a payment path Christi himself has talked about.
It increases in 1/10 payments, which is exactly what the governor said he wanted to do with the last budget. And by the time these full payments are made, New Jersey, with very moderate growth, can in fact make these payments.
The fight over pensions between Christi and the unions has been on the Trenton marquee for a couple of years now, and looks like it's going to stay there. In Trenton, I'm Michael Aaron, NJTV News.
The state of the state's job growth is strong. After 3 months during which New Jersey added fewer than 3,000 jobs, the December numbers were startling. Roseland-based ADP reports 6,200 new private sector jobs came online last month, 5,700 in the business, trade, transportation and utilities, mining and construction services sector, another 500 in the goods producing sector. The December growth tied New York's and exceeded Pennsylvania's. But there was bad news for the gambling capital. Its revenue dropped 6.5% in 2015. Governor Christi didn't utter a word about Atlantic City, but as he was delivering his State of the State, Atlantic City was getting what officials there considered a backroom sucker punch. The threat of a hostile takeover by the state. That or bankruptcy. Brenda Flanagan reports.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me say it'd be a cold day in hell before we just stand by idly and just allow folks to run over the people of Atlantic City.
Atlantic City's beleaguered officials today vowed they won't fold and accept a complete state takeover of the city's finances. Despite budget deficits so massively deep the municipality could face bankruptcy without some sort of state bailout, locals promised to resist surrendering local control.
Partner with us. Don't come in here with a hostile takeover, a plantation mentality. Do as I say.
There's no fight here. We're not the Camden of 10 years ago. There is no war. We haven't declared war. We're sitting at the table to negotiate and to find the ways to move the city forward.
The takeover proposal, co-sponsored by State Senate President Steve Sweeney, would place the financially struggling town under state control for 15 years. Atlantic City's been hemorrhaging tax revenues after the gambling industry contracted and 4 casinos closed in 2014. The municipality's already overseen by a state-appointed financial monitor, plus an emergency financial manager appointed by Governor Christi a year ago. But budget cuts and debt restructuring haven't closed the gap.